Josh, Nick, and Vance here on B Shifter, and today we have radio traffic. We are getting great radio traffic doing rescues, so we thought we'd do rescue part 2 today and have some examples, some pretty brief examples of some incidents that are moving pretty quick. They either get all clears or the rescue's made very quickly at the beginning of it. So, we talk about Blue Card, and sometimes we get bashed that it's not a rescue system, where it is absolutely a rescue system. And we have 2 different departments, states apart, that are going to prove it today. Josh, the first one's in Deerfield. Can you give us a little background on that one?
Yeah, so Deerfield Township, suburban fire department, 20 miles north of Cincinnati, suburban organization, runs auto aid, countywide response system, single dispatch center for the county. Deerfield's got 4 stations, and on this incident, it was Deerfield Township and 5 other fire departments were dispatched on it to fill out, the proper deployment for the incident. And another thing that we're going to hear on this one is it's not just calling fire companies automatic, it's calling other chiefs, battalion chiefs, whatever, to help manage and organize the incident automatically, so you can build out the system right from the get-go. So that's part of the deployment.
Yeah, we get people scratching their heads sometimes saying, well, my department only has 2 or 3 chiefs available. But if you have those strong relationships ahead of time and you have departments that routinely work together and train together, you can make it seamless, like it is one large department.
Yeah. So another piece of this on the deployment is, because like so many areas all across the country where this fire occurred within their jurisdiction is a little bit of an island. So they get a ladder truck that's a medic there and a battalion chief there pretty quickly. But then behind that, the entire rest of the response pretty much shows up at the same time, but it's not really staggered. So those first companies are there for a little bit by themselves. And we'll hear how that plays out and how they use the resources that they had to, work through and solve the problem. So it's a small, single family, single story residence with a working fire. And they had some information of reported people trapped.
Let's go to Deerfield Township, Ohio.
Ladder 57, level and power 61, engine 56, level and quint 63, ladder 76, engine 58, ladder 52, Lebanon medic 41, stand 56, I'm at 57, TAC 3, reported structure fire 2355 Hibiscus Road, across the Primrose and Canna Drive. There's 5704 at 1516. Battalion 56. Battalion 56. The plane lives down the street. I believe they were seeing smoke coming from the roof. Further information, they advise now appears to be a working fire.
You advise appears to be a working fire.
Yeah, he quoted says it's going pretty good now.
Excellent. Good dispatcher on tech.
Battalion 56 is on scene of a small residential structure. Got a working fire with smoke from the roof. Battalion 56 will have command and accountability on the alpha side. Crews arriving on scene will operate in the offensive strategy. Battalion's out. 360 report follow.
11 and medic 41's en route. Command will follow up on the 360 report. Looks like we're on a crawl space. Appears to be a working attic fire. Looks like it's going to be more towards the Bravo end of the structure. Heavy smoke on the interior. Command will be on the alpha side. Command communications, start Duke Electric.
Chief 77, level 1. Chief 76, level 1.
Park out of the way, come forward. Yeah, in charge of medic.
Command, we've got water on the fire.
Command copies water to fire. Next imaging company, try to bring in off Primrose, please.
Yeah, so what we heard at this point, that the battalion, the ladder, that medic all pulled up at the same time, but the battalion was in front of a little bit, gives the size up, what's going on. And that first due company working with their medic unit that's in their station, just did what they normally do. They got a water supply, they lay a hand line, they're working together. And obviously all this audio is pretty compressed because it went from from one thing right to the next, but we don't need to let it be all stretched out. We just want to hear what happened. And I think that's one of the things that is a little different when you're on the fire ground compared to sitting in a sim lab. Is you actually get to see what's happening, not just hear what's happening. So as you're listening to it, it's like, well, what happened? Where'd that company come from? How'd they do that? And that's what it is. That's why I started this off this way, that they all pulled up, together. Another piece of this is you heard that battalion en route key up and say, make sure we got a dispatcher on the TAC channel. And on working fires, they put a dispatcher on the TAC channel. So we're not switching around. They're monitoring the TAC channel. They're listening. They can help, not really manage the event, but help support, what's going on in the event, all on one frequency. So
we get questions a lot about what if the chief is the first arriving. And this was a good example of that too, because the chief was the first arriver, gave a good size up and started the incident action plan off.
Yeah. And let that first company still do what they would normally do. I mean, they didn't need to give out a big dissertation of exactly what they were doing, because the battalion was there and was already, establishing command, and that other company was going to, just do the work that they do. And the battalion was able to see that those things were happening. So, he was checking that box off, like listening to it. It's like what was going on. But if you were there and you could see it, it just all makes sense that the work was happening.
Street's going to be closed from the hydrant. We're on firmos.
276, 277. We got a possible entrapment. We'll make you guys primary search.
277 clear on search.
Ladder 57, I got 76's chief coming in for a primary search.
That's clear. We've got improving visibility in here. Fire's going to be in the attic. We're putting water on it. So.
I copy, fires in the attic. Good visibility. They're opening up right now. Swing engine 56. Pull line up your truck. Backup line, alpha side. Hold the front door. Don't advise otherwise.
56 clear. Backup line, alpha side.
Command from ladder 57.
Good, ladder 57.
I have medic 57 searching as well.
So this one's a little different, too. And you could, shake your head or scratch your head or raise an eyebrow, whatever, because the response is a little different. So that chief, there's the two chiefs from a neighboring community who are on the response, get there. The battalion is in command. He's got a line on the fire. They say they're getting the water on the fire. He's got another company bringing another hand line for backup. And right before that, he'd assigned those two chiefs to interior to do a search, to work together to go to the interior, do a search because they had a known entrapment. Well, he didn't have any other resources at that point. So he was putting together the resources to work through and solve the problem. So in that region, it is the expectation that unless you're told to come to the command post as a support officer, that you are going to come forward when you are assigned something fully dressed that you could operate in the IDLH if you needed to operate in the IDLH. And in this case, that worked out just fine. So this next piece we're going to hear is that those two are in there doing a search. And we just heard ladder 57 key up and say, my medic is doing a primary search of the first floor also.
So the BC they assigned to search.
So mutual aid, there were two chiefs that arrived together and they assigned them to do a search. He didn't have any other resources because he had a company putting water on the fire and he didn't have any other resources there. So he's a chief. He's a chief. He's that battalion, the first battalion. I mean, he's there in command and he's got right now, he's basically got a ladder, a medic, and another engine had just pulled up. But right before that, those two chiefs get there, known entrapment, and he's like, I need to get a search done. So we're going to use these people. And
that's crazy. But what the hell? It's like you said, you normally don't do it like that. But what the hell? You could use a tactical boss if they're qualified to, like an AMBO, I suppose. What the hell?
76 priority traffic. We got the victim coming out the alpha side.
Command company's victims coming out the alpha side.
Ladder 76, level 1.
Unit advising level 1, repeat.
Ladder 76 is level 1.
Ladder 76, bring your personnel forward with quick fill red equipment on deck alpha side.
Engine 58, command information. I got engine 56 providing EMS care. We're going to take their line to go interior.
Copy 58 is going to be a backup line. Engine 56 has been assigned to EMS care.
Medic 76, staging at level 1.
Medic 76, get as close to see as you can without getting blocked in. We're providing ALS care at this time for the victim who appears to be conscious. Bring your cot up and let's get him transported here.
So, I mean, we're going to stop it there. But when you start putting all that together, so the ladder had stretched along, was getting water on the fire, which is a big deal. We talked about that with the whole Cobb County thing. They didn't abandon basic firefighting things that make it better because there was a victim. They kept putting water on the fire. The ladder was doing that. The medic crew had broke off to do a search. He assigned that Chief 76, Chief 77 to work together to also do a primary search. The next transmission that we heard was priority traffic from Chief 76 saying, we found a victim. We're coming out the alpha side. Command acknowledges it. A company goes level 1, which was really, it wasn't right on top of it like that, but we pushed all this together. He gets them come forward on deck so he had a tactical reserve there. And then those 2 companies just transmitted at the front door. We're flopping spots. One company is going to be taking over medical for the person that they'd pulled out, and what company was now going to be on the backup line. And then the next transmission was to that medic unit that went level 1, tells the medic unit, come forward, got a patient in the front yard, you're going to be patient care, need your cot to the alpha side. As we listen to this, not a ton of stuff going on, but they remained calm, pretty good communications. The incident commander knew what was going on, used the resources that he had available to work through and solve the problem. And a big thing is put the fire out, because that makes it better for everybody. It makes it better for the victim, makes it better for the building, makes it better for the fireman, buys us time. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. It all happened in 7 minutes.
It's an excellent example of the task driving the deployment. Because like you say, you look at the way they assigned based on whatever the most critical need was. So like you said, they used what would normally be the tactical level boss who did search and rescue and found the victim and pulled them out. And then you're assigning ladders to pull attack lines. So again, we show up and do a variety of things based on what needs to be done. And you said it was all under control. The IC had everybody where they were. It certainly was I think it's an example. The reason it worked, I think, is because they practiced it all the time. And they figured out it wasn't foreign to any of them. Because normally, during my career, if I'd have done that, we would have fallen down 2 or 3 times at a minimum. In fact, they would have come back and said, we ain't going in. We're battalion chiefs, goddammit. It's a different world.
But it's the world that most of us live in. I went to that call yesterday, and 2 chiefs did the primary on the garage and alongside a void space because we didn't have any companies there yet. Well, the company that was there was trying to put the fire out to possibly save savable victims. The only other people available were the battalion chiefs. And the reason that they were available to do that is, number one, they train with their companies, they know the system, and they come dressed, ready to work. So they're not just walking up with a white helmet and their uniform on. They're fully turned out. They have an air pack on their back. They have the mask ready to go, because usually they're warm zone bosses, and we tell them when they go to the warm zone, that's how you have to be dressed. But once in a while, you might be called upon because of the way that we're short-staffed. And yesterday's first alarm was basically 2 engines, a ladder, and a bunch of chiefs. That's just the way it's going to work sometimes. And that's how it ended up working. And you have to deploy to your level. And I think that's the great thing about Blue Card, is the deployment isn't the same everywhere, and we recognize that. The other thing, too, is not every scenario is going to be perfect, like you're in the lab, like it's a sterile environment. You get through it. You get through the functions of command. You get through the strategic decision-making model. And if you're deploying that, you're going to be really good. But sometimes I feel like there's departments out there that really beat their people over the head because they didn't score 100% every time. Well, when we're in these dynamic environments, it's not going to be 100% every time on the score sheet. But if they're addressing the critical fireground factors, that's the 100%. And they did that here.
I guess you would have to what wouldn't you use a BC to do? would you assign them to fire control? I mean, how deep in it would you get?
Well, it's the initial actions that have to be taken typically. Then you pull the BC back once you get the companies there, and then they assume more of a tactical boss position. But because of the way that we deploy and we're short-staffed, sometimes they have to step into those roles temporarily and then step back out.
If we would have done this in my career, I would have been pissed off and had a meeting with people and said, for a while, we had shift commanders, young shift commanders, hanging turnouts on the doors of the response vehicle so they could get there first and lead the attack. And you thought, I came from a different world where it was built in for us. We weren't task level operators for a reason. We didn't have enough chiefs. We had too many Indians type of a thing. So, but for you guys, I could say you have the first three, half your resources showing up in the front end are chiefs. You're not, okay. You're managing the work. If there's no work to do, then I guess you don't manage it. I mean, so do the work. And it's.
I think those chiefs need to understand the rules of engagement and all that. And once there are people to supervise, then you start supervising them. You disengage from the work. You're taking a step back then at that point, and you're starting to actually be in the role that you're supposed to be in as that chief. The other issue that I was going to talk about was I have had 2 incidents lately where we had engines that didn't lay in, and we run 500-gallon tanks on our engines. And in both examples, both times, the BC had to help hand jack 200 feet of 5-inch from the engine to the hydrant. And that's an example of a BC getting engaged in an activity that A, they didn't need to if we were disciplined enough to lay in, and B, it gets them so out of sorts by the time it's time for them to be actually in command, they're out of breath and their brain's somewhere else. So I hear what you're saying, Nick. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for a BC to be engaged and not engaged. In that example of the BC hand jacking 200 feet of 5-inch, they shouldn't be engaged in that activity. The engine company should have had the foresight to lay in those examples. I think there's a really important rule of engagement in your organization that you need to talk about if your chief level officers are going to be engaged in some task level activities temporarily.
What you just described, I did that as a shift commander. We got there, command was already set up. They were in their rig. We were walking over to the IC's rig as the senior advisor. And there was some engineer having trouble hooking up, and there was too much water that wasn't coming out of the right holes. I ended up helping him for like 3 minutes. You know what happened during that 3 minutes? And I'm not bullshitting. Mayday occurred. In fact, that was kind of the reason I was getting out of my vehicle, because there was some shit going on and you thought, nah, this looks goofy over here. And then, like you say, you end up being the engineer's assistant in the thing. See, but again, I lived in a very robust, well-staffed fire department. It was a different thing for us. You guys live in a different world. So that's where the authorities have a jurisdiction, I think. Figures like Josh said, no, man, I needed search and rescue. They saved the victim. I guess that validates the operation right there. Had they not gone in and done that, how much longer would it have been to save the person? Yeah. And what would they would have been standing outside with their thumb up their ass doing nothing in the meantime, waiting for companies to get there. So you can see where it does that. I think that's the beauty of the blue card, is the curriculum is the best practices that we have developed since the 70s that we've captured and moved forward. And then every fire department, the adults who run that operationally especially, figure out, okay, here's how we're going to have to do this based on the team players that we have showing up in the times and sequences and all the other stuff.
So on this, I mean, I think it goes back to just a really good example, I think, of using the strategic decision-making model. I mean, based off the critical factors that were going on, they used the only resources that they had available to solve the problem, as quickly as they could. And it wasn't like the strategic IC abandoned their position. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at that point, the strategic IC didn't need a tactical boss there because he had 3 companies. I mean, well, he had really, you could say 3 companies, maybe. A ladder, a medic, and 1 other company had pulled up, and then he had these 2 chiefs that pulled up. So, we're there to solve the problem. And based off that strategic decision-making model, he used it to work through and, solve the factors that they were seeing. So if that incident would have been, we'll just say 3 miles to the west of where it actually was, that would have never happened. Because if you go 3 miles to the west, you're at the same time, you get 3 engines and a ladder pulling up, and the chief ain't there until after those 3 engines and ladder are there. So the model's a little bit different. So I think that goes back to what Vance said. Hey, what's it sound like when the chief does pull up? Because the fire was in his backyard, basically. And that's what it sounds like. That's a piece of it. And we got some other really good chief arriving first by accident because they were in the area audio pieces that we're going to, push out down the road of what does that sound like when they get there.
Well, if I was the BC who made the rescue, when I got back to quarters after the call was over, I would remove the battalion verbiage off my vehicle and put rescue, probably rescue 1, maybe fire factory underneath that, and then make an appointment for a tattoo. And I wouldn't pay Kitty at least for another year because I have made the save. And I want you bitches standing up when I come in the station now and acknowledging my prowess as a task level operator, baby.
Well, I believe it's a fine line between being engaged in those tasks and knowing when to step back and being a disciplined chief, or being the one yelling tank to pump, Frank, tank to pump. I mean, if you've got a bunch of firefighters standing around and you're the chief engaged in activity, you're doing something wrong. But if you're the only one there to do it, I mean, there's a reason why we, in our chief's rigs, we have life jackets and we have a 20-pound extinguisher and a bunch of other stuff, is because oftentimes we're there first and we might have to take the initial actions because of our staffing.
Vance, I wouldn't get in the ice suit though if I were you, ever. I would not let them put me in that sack.
It's actually warm.
I went to Gordon Graham's retirement party. I was the Phoenix, the only available Phoenix rep. So they sent me to the thing. And there, all of his buddies are up telling stories about the safety czar of the California Highway Patrol. And to a person, they said the most unsafe thing they ever did was getting in a patrol car, chase car, that Gordon Graham was driving. They said he was you just didn't want to do it. So there you go. Mr. Safety, discretionary time, boo, boo, boo.
I quoted you today, though. You got to know sin to fight it, Nick.
100%. I think personally, I was more honest during this podcast than any other I've ever done.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think we should take that out. I think we should leave our honesty in.
We'll leave the honesty in.
Yeah.
It's a lonely word.
If they don't like it, they can listen to something else. God damn it.
Well, ready to go to Olathe. Am I saying that right? Olathe. How do our Kansas friends say it?
I think it's Olathe.
Olathe. Well, let's go to Olathe because they too are a blue card department. How long have they been doing blue card?
10 years.
Long time. Yeah.
And here they are with an imminent rescue on this call.
On the small 2-story house, have a working fire on the second floor. Engine 55 will be stretching a line to the front door for an offensive attack. I'll be like Clinton Command.
Engine 55 on scene, small 2-story working fire on the second floor reception. Clinton Command.
Battalion 52 delayed by train.
Battalion 52 delayed by train.
Clinton Command. Got a patient hanging out a window on the back. Engine 55 firefighter, come around and assist. We're going to go rescue mode.
Dispatch copy, patient hanging out of the window in the back.
Battalion 51's on scene. Battalion 51 to Engine 55 command.
Engine 51 on scene.
Engine 51 on scene.
Command, Engine 51, you'll be fire attack.
Engine 51 copies from fire attack.
Quit 56 on scene, level 1 to the north. Quit 56, bring your rig in. You'll be search.
6 copy search.
Command, dispatch.
Command, go ahead.
3-6, wait. Patient's not involved. Here's the working fire on the second floor. 2 stable patients. Engine 55 is currently operating rescue mode.
Dispatch copy 360 complete. Basement, here's not involved. Working fire second floor. Engine 55 rescue mode. All medical units switch to Tech 5. All medical units switch your operations Tech 5.
Engine 55 to command. Good. Rescue complete. We're bringing the patient around to the alpha site. She reports nobody else inside. Kids probably went to a neighbor's house is her idea.
I copy. You have patient care until medic arrives.
Engine 55 copies patient care.
Rest 51's on scene to the south, level 1.
Yeah, so I think to this point in this one, the first company gets there, gives a size up, starts to paint the picture, what's going on. And, when they're pulling up, everybody on that truck's probably thinking this is what we're going to do, fire attack, we're going to get a water supply, stretch a hand line, whatever. Company officer's doing a 360, keys up the radio, hey, we got a victim hanging out. And that changes, the initial incident action plan of what anybody and everybody who was on the initial response was thinking. So he starts to paint a little bit different picture of what's going on, gives some specific orders to that firefighter, bring a ground ladder out so we can perform this rescue. We're going to be in rescue mode. And then the battalion gets there, and there was only one company operating at that point. So that company had already reported everything that they were doing. So there doesn't need to be a big command transfer. Really, the battalion just got command off of that company's back so that they could do the task level work that they'd identified in their incident action plan and size up, which the initial size up, that's what includes that. And then that second, company, that second engine was pulling up, really took the role of what the first company would do. They became the initial fire attack company. The ladder pulls up. They're going to assign them primary search. They'd already gotten one victim out, potentially another victim, inside the building. So the battalion is command. We didn't hear like a big standard normal, command transfer piece, but the company officer and that firefighter, working together was working on a task to get the victim out. And again, they were the only company working at that point. So there doesn't need to be, a big transfer piece. But what still came out in all of it was the completion of the 360 and what was going on that clarified for everybody. The fire appears to be on the second floor, and we're performing a rescue of a victim from a window.
In that case, you're transferring command to improve command, and the quicker you can transfer it, the quicker you'll improve it. Because, like you said, they got their hands full making the rescue. And it's that simple. BC gets there. You BC, you want to be helpful? You get there. Hey, I copy your thing. I'm taking it. You don't need shit from them at that point. Continue on the rescue and let me know when you got it made. So it's boom. Taking command takes too long, and people will die. No, it won't. In fact, if you take command, you'll figure out what you're doing and you'll save people. You can take instant action. These are two incidents where you see that. Shit, the first one you had the tactical bosses making the rescue in the thing. So I guess the deal that you can only command or do the task at the same time was bullshit. We can do it at the same time. What it is it's a professional operation is what it is. That let's just call it that.
And this fire department doing blue card, as long as they've been doing blue card, a beautiful thing is blue card has a simulation that lines up very much so with this exact piece. Initial radio report. This is what it looks like. This is what we're doing. Oh, I'm doing the 360 now. There's a victim hanging out the window. Changes things up a little bit. Oh, we're going to get this victim out the window. We're going to assign another company to do something else. Well, if you can have the opportunity to practice that play before you actually have to run it in the field to see what it looks like and what it sounds like, you're just going to be that much more successful when it really happens. So, I mean, that's a beautiful thing that it lines up that they were able to practice this. I mean, who knows how many times before, the event actually happens. It shouldn't be a surprise that when we walk around the back of a building and somebody's hanging out, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We have to go to plan B here, and we're going to have to do something a little bit different, which is why it all fits into, you can't try to force a single SOP driven response down every single incident because the critical factors change. And this is just an example of the critical factors change. They weren't expecting somebody to be hanging out the window, but they get around the back and somebody's hanging out the window. So it's like, we're going to do something a little bit different, and it fits. And they assign other companies to address those critical factors based off the priority of how those things need to be addressed.
And these two incidents are excellent examples of why deployment was moved to the first function of command. It's because, and Vance said it, is in my fire department, are the challenges we have. And this is my deployment capability. So based off of this is the way we're going to operate when we get there. And like you just said, Josh, the system gives you a way to practice that routinely to keep those skills, that level of professionalism honed. And what it does is it gives you options. At any simulation, any actual real fire, there are oftentimes multiple right answers for whatever your next assignment's going to be. So depending on what your first one was, will dictate the second one. Well, the thing that's going to dictate your first assignment is your deployment capability. So here you have an old person who has permanent neural pathways that tell them one thing based on where I work. My shit ain't going to work. I'm not a suburban fire department adopting the FDNY ladder manual. See, that's what Blue Card allows you to do now, is to customize based on you.
Timeless Tactical Truths, and today we pick the Four of Hearts. And the Four of Hearts from Bruno says, it generally takes a command level street fight to convert a cluster into an under control incident. It generally takes a command level street fight to convert a cluster into an under control incident. Decipher that for us, Nick. What was your dad talking about street level fight?
That's kind of the salvage command piece. So when the incident operation starts off and it doesn't go as smooth as it can, when you get an actual strategic officer there that's transferring command, is that turns into a street fight, is for that new IC to get control of that incident operation again. So they're going to have to go to every company. And in fact, sometimes it's easier just to change the strategy at that point, to get them all out and say, okay, I know where you're at. I know what the thing is now. Now we can start again under control. But it's very disruptive in the thing. So really what happened is nobody really did the initial front end of that. It turns into very quickly can turn into out of control mess if you're not kind of sequential and intentional in it. And then what it is the first person that actually establishes command where you can control position and function have got to get everybody into that system now. Very difficult to do. Time compressed. It's usually during the most dangerous part of the incident operation. So now, especially if the thing that derailed it is they're finding victims, you're not changing the strategy. You're going to start pulling victims out. So but you're going to need more resources. It becomes harder and harder the longer it goes out of control.
That wraps up this Bee Shifter with this interesting, mind-blowing, in some cases, rescue radio traffic. If you have radio traffic for us and you're a Blue Card instructor, you can upload that radio traffic on the Bee Shifter website on the dashboard, or you can drop us a line. All of our contact information is in the show notes. If you like this episode, you enjoy listening to Bee Shifter, all we ask you to do is subscribe and tell a friend. Till next time, thanks so much for listening to Bee Shifter.